Okay, welcome everybody. We are going to do our November forecast. Hopefully, I can keep my words straight. I am clearly very tired today. And so here we are. We're here today to look at November 2024, what our forecast is, the energy that's coming up. And I can say to start with that it is a very, very intense month. Obviously, here in the United States, we know we have the election, and that can account for a lot of what we might experience. If you go to the bottom of my list of major shifts, the fact that Pluto is opposite Mars virtually all month, I mean, from my perspective, it is in range of a reasonable orb the entire month. So the intensity of that, I mean, within each one of us individually, to have Pluto opposite Mars in our chart somewhere indicates that, like wherever the Mars is, we feel compelled to move forward, to do something, to get something done, and you can see if you're looking here at November, it starts out at the very last degree pretty much of Cancer. And then it's moving all through Leo, and Leo is a fiery sign. Whereas Pluto over here is in the last degree of Capricorn and moving into early Aquarius. And Mars, again, is moving forward, getting it done, being intense about things. I want what I want. I want it now. I'm willing to fight for what I want. I'm willing to fight for my beliefs and values, maybe. And then Pluto is all about transformation and empowerment, but Pluto can carry the energy of control and manipulation, and some pretty deep dark feelings sometimes come up wherever Pluto is, remember, because it's taking us into the shadow material. So in our own individual charts, you need to be looking at that end of Cancer and beginning of Leo and what that is about for you. And then also opposite the end of Capricorn, the beginning of Aquarius. And especially because this is the last month where we have any days with Pluto in Capricorn, we are finishing up this major transformational period, this shadow exposure, psychological material that we have been in since 2008. And remember that Neptune is in always a sextile for 100 years with Pluto, and that brings in the more spiritual energy, but in unskillful hands, in connected maybe to people who are not doing their work, it can be illusion and delusion and a certain like loss of self that can be destructive. Pisces is this sign of creativity and imagination, but the reverse of it is destruction, that where everything falls apart and there's tragic losses. So we know that where Neptune is in the last degrees of Pisces, and that adds emphasis to the possibility that basically people are losing their minds. So from my perspective, this Pluto Mars, like, you can work with it to see what are you launching in this life, what are you moving forward that matters to you, that's in alignment with your spiritual path, and how can you dig deep and work with any blockages to become empowered. That's the thing to be thinking about all month. At the same time, if we think about it as world energy, there's a certain level of it where Leo represents kings, queens, those who have the money, the wealth, the power. And, we could think of that as the 1%. We could think of that as the big corporations. And then we've got the Pluto that is going to be first in Capricorn, the sign of the structure of the patriarchy, the structure of big business. See how there's a slight difference there, where the Leo might represent like the royal family or the Kardashians, people who have this big image, who are clearly very wealthy, and there's a lavishness to it. The Capricorn represents big companies, the oil companies, the government, Google, uh, Amazon. However, by the 19th, when Pluto moves into Aquarius, then Aquarius represents the people. It represents, the equality and the need for accessibility and the progress that we need. And to me, this just this, and of course there's many other things to look at astrologically, and many people have been talking about the election, what's going to happen, but this opposition to me represents that there's some question at the election, who's winning, right? Is it going to be the Republicans, and especially that Trump and the MAGA people, uh, and or and I usually try to stay away from too much politics, but I would say that in my mind, as much as Trump tries to say he's for the average person, it's very clear that his policies are for those who have wealth, that he wants to cut taxes for the big companies and those who have wealth. I don't think we can argue about that. Uh, and then we have the Democrats, who actually have policies in place for how they can help people and provide kind of more of a stabilization and giving, help and support to the middle class. So to me, it's pretty much guaranteed, just looking at what's going on in the news and what is likely to happen, that we will have lawsuits and recounts and all sorts of things to start with. But I feel that by the time we get to the 19th and moving forward toward the inauguration, that we're likely to have the election decided toward the Democrats, because from my perspective, unless we're going to the very darkest place of Aquarius, where it's virtually I don't even know what words to use. The most cold, detached, chilling energy that Aquarius can bring us. If there's any hope of progress and moving forward with women's rights and the ability to choose, and all of the freedoms that we care about, I think that the election ultimately has to be decided toward Democrats. That's my sense of it. Meanwhile, if you look at all of the other things that are going on, we have a new moon at 10 degrees Scorpio, lots of planetary changes. The second Mercury to Sagittarius, uh, that's relevant because there are some astrologers who say that elections are decided by the mood of the people on election day. And when people feel positive about life and the country and money and things moving forward, they vote Democrat. And when they feel fearful and negative and concerned, then, they hunker in and they want to be more conservative with who they vote for. So Mercury in Sagittarius can give us an election day where people are more positive and optimistic, more hopeful. Sometimes Mercury in Sag is hopeful even when it's kind of unfounded and there's no good reason for it. But it also gives us a day where people are really extreme about their beliefs and voting according to, beliefs which are not always rational. Then we have Mars going into Leo, and that brings more fire to the energy of Mars, which is already a fiery planet. And Venus into Capricorn after the election, but still in this month, where Venus, the planet of relationship, planet that connects to women, is in a sign that is about conservatism and building and creating structure piece by piece. And then we have a full moon in Taurus, 24 degrees Taurus, mid-month. Pluto then goes into Aquarius. The sun goes into big picture sunny Sagittarius. And Mercury then stations retrograde. So more probably about, are we confused about things? Do we have to recount, reconsider, review everything that's been done? And then finally on November 30th, the very end of the month, we have a second new moon. That's Pacific time. It is actually December 1st, early in the morning for East Coast. So it really depends where you live, whether you're going to consider this to be the end of the month or the beginning of December. Lots of change, lots of intensity in all the ways we think about it. Now, in this class, what we do is we tend to focus a lot, though, on what the moons are and how they're going to affect you. And you can see just very visually here with the lines that the computer generates that we have a very tight trine with this new moon on November 1st. It's at 9.5 degrees of Scorpio, and you see that there. Set in Washington, D.C. It's in the 12th house of things that are hidden. And we have a Scorpio rising and Mercury in Scorpio right on the ascendant. So the sign of Scorpio is about depth, intensity, truth, but the 12th house is things that are hidden. And ultimately with Scorpio, we see what is toxic and we work to transform it. We work to empower and to bring honesty, sometimes ruthless honesty to any situation. In a trine with Neptune and Pisces, we bring in the possibility of spirituality and unconditional love, but we also bring in the possibility of delusion, illusion, things being hidden and unseen. So on one hand, we have the potential for lies, and on the other hand, we have the Scorpio that tends to want to dig deep and find the truth and expose that truth. And then Mars, to make the third point of the grand trine, moves forward intensely, directly in the sign of Cancer, is maybe more nourishing. But I would also say the sign of Cancer represents women. So we have this, potential that I've been feeling all along is true here, that as we're coming into the election, the voice of women or the voice for women, fighting for women, can be a strong one. Now, I can also argue that Mars in Cancer can, for some people, be fighting on behalf of babies, unborn babies, as the Christian right believes that, a baby is formed at conception and want to fight for them. Here we have, the intensity of Scorpio, life and death energies, and Neptune, one's high level spiritual beliefs. So, we can take this in a couple of ways. And I think it's always important when we're considering anything about politics or world astrology that we realize that we each have a bias usually, and we can interpret astrology according to our bias pretty well. So looking at both sides of it is always important. But the other aspect related to women is the Jupiter in Gemini retrograde. So belief system, gathering more data and information, trying to have a more open mind in review, looking backwards, looking at what has already happened in yourself or in the collective. So you're going to look at, where is Jupiter at 20 degrees Gemini in your chart? What's the meaning of it? And then it is opposite Venus in Sagittarius. So again, women coming forward according to their beliefs. This is also something that's just in the air just as we're approaching the election, and it's kind of baked into the first 2 weeks of the month with the new moon that we're experiencing. You can see here the Mars opposite Pluto, this opposition we've already been talking about. And even though it doesn't show clearly here that it's a kite, we don't see this line that goes from Pluto to Chiron. It is, I'm sorry, Pluto to Neptune. Got confused by my triangles here. Even though we don't quite see that sextile, it is very much in a sextile formation. And so when you have a kite, you get the flow of the grand trine and the energy harmonized and moving together. Sometimes people will say it's like a lazy river, and so it doesn't have the power, it's just going. But my experience is, especially when there's intense planets like Neptune or Scorpio planets, that it can be very, very powerful. And the planet that is at the outlet point, in this case, Pluto, of this kite, there's pressure on it. It's intense. And look at what degree it's in. It's in the last degree of Capricorn, the anaretic degree, where we have been working on something for the whole 29 degrees, and now we are at the final exam. And if we have learned what we need to learn, this energy will move forward in a powerful way. If we haven't learned what we're meant to learn, then we are likely to have some kind of more extreme event to bring the energy forward so that we can have that, in this case, Pluto transformation around structure, around what we're building. This is true in a worldly way, and it's also very, very true for each one of you individually. So, where is 29 degrees Capricorn? We've done this before in some classes, but I'll invite you again in this next, week or so. As much as possible, take some meditation time to just sit with the question, what have I been working on since 2008? How have I empowered myself by facing my fears? How have I empowered myself by digging deep into my psychology and becoming a more integrated whole human being? If there's any more changes that you need to make or awareness that needs to be delved into and come up to the surface, then this is a good time to do that. Now we still have the nodes in Aries and Libra, but whoops, hold on, go back. Uh, the nodes are still in Aries and Libra. The Libra South node is the letting go of codependence, overgiving, vacillating, not making choices, trying to make everything so fair and balanced. It's just perfect. And the North node in Aries asks us to embody courage, bravery, life force, vitality, and to go for it. And I feel that, again, this is going to be true in your personal life, that you're in the last few months of understanding yourself through this lens. You may have been having ideas all along for the last almost year and a half of where you're giving yourself up and where you want to do more of what you want. I would encourage you also in that meditation to consider where you give too much to others or to causes, and where you can express yourself independently, taking care of your own needs with life force and vitality that allows you the freedom to, I'm gonna put this, to live your true soul path. So we're not talking about a ego-based selfishness with North Node in Aries. We're talking about the esoteric quality of Aries that allows us to feel the drive inside to live our best path and fight for what matters to us in this life, and also to, give to others appropriately, to find a good balance between self and other. And you can see that, maybe it's, specifically in Washington, so East Coast people, that the vertex is quite a square to the nodes. But I would encourage you to think about that anyway. Just as a point of reflection, the vertex represents fated connections, and in Cancer might be the people we love unconditionally or family members. And that's forming a stress square to the nodes. And that is often very true when we're having trouble with the South Node in Libra and we're giving too much and we're trying to let go. We have to remember that we often have these fated connections with family and people that we feel we love so unconditionally that we can't help but give to them. And reviewing that, and this is not a tight square, but Ceres, the asteroid of nourishment, nourishing food and mothering, in Capricorn, asks us to nourish ourselves and others in a way that has boundaries. And that is also, connected into this last little bit of Pluto in Capricorn. Where are we looking at duties and obligations that are valid? And where are we experiencing duties and obligations that really we're stuck, we're giving too much, and it's draining us and exhausting us, and maybe it's not necessary. Maybe there's another way that we can either encourage people to be empowered, or we can find other situations for them. Again, this new moon carries one more message about this kind of thought process where we have Mercury in Scorpio. So the mind operating in the way of deep analysis, research, investigation, figuring out what's empowering for us. And its opposite, Uranus in Taurus, where that active energy of the lightning bolt, the radical idea, the new vision, is in Taurus, where we get kind of catapulted out of the places where we're stuck and where we think we're being a good, loyal person, but we actually have to open up so that we can be in alignment with our path. Okay, now full moon, we'll talk to you. So the full moon is November 15th. 5:28 p.m. in Washington. And as you can see, it is at 24 degrees of Taurus. My ephemera said 2401, but the astrology chart mapped it right at 24 exact. Sun in Scorpio, moon in Taurus. The moon looking full in the night sky. In a full moon, we look at this as a time of completion or culmination. Sometimes it's some situation that got started at the new moon and 2 weeks later is done. But most often we are rolling these moons over again and again, and we are dealing with something that started a long time ago, and we are either standing on a plateau saying, I've done this much so far, or we are standing at the top of the mountain and saying, I have completed. Maybe we're standing at the bottom of the mountain going, I thought I started it, but I can't make my way up the mountain yet. And then I'd say you need more support and the next new moon to really start again. Now, the sun in the new moon and the sun in the full moon is the place to look at what you're building and developing. And here we have Scorpio energy, again, transformation, depth, honesty, integrity. And the moon in Taurus, what are we letting go of? We can look at inertia, stuckness, stubbornness, but there's also positive in everything, right? So there's a certain groundedness. We could say in maybe a certain way, as oppositions are, we're looking at the balance between the two, the balance between the depth and intensity and purposefulness of Scorpio and the moon asking us to be grounded, stable, and loyal. But meanwhile, the moon is not operating by itself. It is, joined very tightly to Uranus, the planet of radical change, freedom, authenticity, awakening, and it's retrograde. So there's something here about the revolution, about, internal for you, wherever that is in your chart, internal breakthroughs and revolution and freedom to be your authentic self, as well as possibly something going on here where the moon, women, something to do with babies, maybe, something to do with nurturing, love, is, breaking things up. Maybe there's some kind of surprise here. So wherever that is in your chart, especially if it's on planets in Scorpio or Taurus, or you've got planets in those late degrees of Leo and Aquarius, this full moon may be an important one for you. Now you can see we're starting to have the changes. Mercury is now well into Sagittarius. Venus has just moved into Capricorn. So there's this relation building that's going on in a deep, grounded, structured way. We see that Pluto is even closer to the very end of Capricorn. It's just days before it moves into Aquarius and stays there for 20 years. Now, I didn't mention too much in the new moon chart about Neptune and Saturn both being in Pisces. I think most of you know that Neptune has been in Pisces since about 2011, bringing us this waterfall of energy, that spiritual, intuitive, compassionate, creative in a transcendent way, but also brings about losses, especially water losses, diseases. So there's both. There's the bliss of Neptune, and there's also the intense loss and pain of Neptune, pain of the collective unconscious. But we've all had an opportunity to receive more psychic access than ever before in these years. And it is allowing many new creative ideas to come in, and lots of compassion and care. And then meanwhile, since March 2023, Saturn has been in Pisces as kind of the cleanup crew, bringing about maturity, groundedness, structure to everything about Pisces, including caring for those who are less fortunate. That's going to be a really big deal in the upcoming years, because with climate change, we are having more and more disasters, certainly floods and hurricanes and fires, even though, we're now moving into Neptune in Aries, where I can imagine more heat and more fires, but all of the possible climate disasters have been happening. And Saturn is going to be more and more representing the need for a new structured, mature approach to taking care of people and taking care of the earth so that we can survive. So we'll see that as both Neptune and Saturn start going into Aries next year, and there's huge alignments next year at the end of the year and into 2026. There's an alignment of these planets at 1 degree. There's another one in 2026 at 4 degrees. That includes Jupiter as well. This alignment includes Pluto and Uranus, transformation and revolution. We are heading into, huge changes. And we can see the beginning of it as we're looking at all of our new and full moons and approaching into this very big time of change. You can see here that Saturn is now direct. It goes direct between the new moon and the full moon, and right around this 12, 13 degree mark. So if your Pisces energy is before that, you're not getting any more Saturn back and forth on it. Now Saturn's going to start to work more with the second and third decans. So more toward the ending degrees of Pisces in this upcoming year. Pretty much everything else is the same. We've got Mars in Leo. As I said, that was happening. And when we have the full moon, you can see that Mars is in a trine with the North Node. That means it's in a sextile with the South Node. So that Mars in Leo, action, will, desire, fastness in a fire sign is supporting us toward the North Node, pioneering innovation, fighting for what matters. And also, finding balance, harmony, Libra, but letting go of where we're giving too much. We have Jupiter well involved still hanging around that 19, 20 degree mark, bringing us into what is truthful, what is the meaning of life, what are we doing here, what do we need to learn and synthesize and integrate. And we can see that there's also a sextile to Chiron, healing the wound that doesn't ever get completely healed, where we have to simply accept it. And this is about, can we do what we want to do? Can we survive? Can we be original and invent and move things forward? And that is in a trine to Mercury in the belief-oriented fire sign of Sagittarius. So here on November 26th, I think this is worth noting for the last week of the month, that this particular grand trine, you see how strong that blue line is. I didn't make that. The computer made that, which tells you, that it's super tight. And we have Mars at 5.5 degrees of Leo, the Sun at 5, almost half degrees of Sag, and the North Node at 5 Aries. This is very strong for choice in accordance with beliefs and expanded vision. That's the Sun. Mars in Leo, where there's action and forward movement and in a fiery, creative, expressive way with Leo. And the North Node moving towards something new. And remember, I just said that in early 2026, there's this major planetary alignment. It will be Pluto at 4 degrees Aquarius in a trine with Uranus at 4 degrees Gemini. So that's a lot of transformational, revolutionary energy that is, in a very activist and mental or smart or communicative way. At the same time, Saturn and Neptune, both in Aries, will align at 4 degrees of 4 degrees of Aries, and Jupiter will be at 4 degrees of, would it be Cancer? Let's see, I have to think this through for a minute. It is in from 25, yes, it'll be in Cancer from May 2025 to about May 2026. So that when that alignment happens, Jupiter will be in Cancer, lining up with all those other things. It's like all the keys in the lock. This is a prelude to that, I believe. And the outlet of this kite is 5 degrees of Libra. So harmony, peace, balance, relational energy, coming into maybe a more calm time, and letting go of any way, personally or collectively, we are vacillating. I really think, if we think about the social issues we face right now, the climate issues, we don't have time to keep on arguing about things. And I feel with this fire energy moving, we have the ability to, move life forward in a new and more harmonious way. And here's the Venus T-square. So we've got Chiron in Aries, again, the wound where we feel we can't be pioneering, we can't start new things, it's too hard. Opposite the moon in Libra, where the emotional, spiritual energy is drawing us toward relationship, harmony, balance. And Venus is at the apex of that T-square, where relating in a way that's grounded, structured, and building toward the future. And that has a light connection with Ceres for nurturing and Pluto for transformation. We have a stress energy here that will be balanced out by Cancerian energy around 18 degrees. So, 15 to 22 degrees, if you have something there, when we have that T-square, the love, the nurturing, the healing, that will be your medicine to create the balance. Okay, that was the piece that I wanted to say about this fire kite. And here, the final new moon, which I called it New Moon November because I was looking at my planets in Pacific time. But here it is. It's at 9.5 degrees of Sagittarius. Also in a trine, in a grand trine with the North Node in Aries and Mars in Leo. And with this, we have moving forward from a place of optimism, hope, and definitely strong beliefs. We've got Mercury in the stellium with that Sagittarian new moon. And that pulls it also into a trine with Chiron, where the ability to move forward, we have to face the ability to move forward in new and pioneering ways. You can see by then that Pluto is completely now into Aquarius, moving forward with progress, innovative ideas, maybe things somewhat in a revolutionary feel. And Venus in Capricorn in a trine with Uranus in Taurus. Women, relationship, restructuring, rebuilding, and in the way of change and waking up from old patterns. It seems like Uranus has been retrograde forever. It will be going forward, I believe, in the new year. I can check that out later. But for right now, what needs to be woken up, where we need to break free from places where we're stuck and stubborn, is getting some support from relationship energy. So this will be, as we're coming to the end of the month and into the new month of December, you can be thinking about who are your people, who are the friends that you feel can help you move forward in your life and be authentic. It's a really nice energy for friends and interpersonal connection. South Node still in Libra, but remember it's going next to Virgo and Pisces. So if you have strong planets there, and I know many people in this group do, be aware that we're almost finished this cardinal sign restructure, and we are coming now into Virgo, like looking at, where the attention to details and feeling less than, feeling unequal power balance, where that is inappropriate and needs to be softened, and where we have to come into Pisces at its highest levels with surrender and trust and being in transcendent creativity. I believe this is my last slide, and I want to take this down now and bring you the other slide that was supposed to be here. So hold on a minute. Let's see if there's anything else I want to say. We'll cover this same chart in our next month's forecast where we're looking at December, because it really does kind of cross over between the 2 months.